Okay, we've started the recording.
Hello. Welcome to Digital Archives Explored, a world waiting to be found. My name is Jill Borin, and I'm the head of archives and digital collections at Widener University, and I am in charge of the Widener University archives.
And my name is Molly Wolf. I am the executive director of the Wolfgram Memorial Library. But for our purposes today, I am the founder and curator of the Sexuality Archives at Widener University.
So I have been an archivist at Widener for nearly 25 years, and in that time, I have built up our digital archives considerably. Currently, as of April 2006, we are managing over 20,000 digital objects on our digital archives. And digital archives are wonderful because it takes everything archivists have always done and makes these available so easily to the public and researchers in so many different ways. So you can see that digital archives can be conceived as collections of digitally created or digitized records, documents, or artifacts that are systematically organized, preserved, and made accessible for long-term storage or use and research. And the systematic organization is very important because that's what archives do or records managers do. And so you can see that the role of an archivist is to assess, collect, organize, prepare, and provide access to archival records, which serves to strengthen collective memory and protect people's rights, property, and identity. So this identity aspect and protection and preservation of rights aspect is very important. So in the process of preserving and systematically organizing digital archives, next slide, please, we engage in the digitization process. The digitization process involves three key elements. We digitize by scanning print materials or acquiring born digital materials. The records management piece is saving and organizing the digital files in a systematic way that ensures their identity and then ensures the identifying information is with them and then making them available. And that's really where digital archives shine because we have these platforms on which we can make these accessible and for researchers and users and things that you may not have been able to access because you would have had to travel to a museum or an archives that was hard to access. And the aspect of the digitization process that's very important is metadata. Next slide, please. Metadata, one way of looking at metadata, which I really like, is the data about data. Another definition you can consider is structural information that describes and contextualizes data of digital resources, facilitating their discovery, management, use, and preservation. So this is an example of metadata from the university archives, and this is the kind of information that we store as metadata in our collections, and we share with the public so that they know the provenance of the material. This is a picture of Old Main, and you see the metadata fields that we've employed for title, subject, description, dates, and so on. And in rights management field that shows you what you can and can't do with this digital image and who owns it. So that's an example from the university archives.
Now, this is an example from the Sexuality Archives, and you'll notice that it has different fields or less fields than the university archives does. So the majority of the materials in the sexuality archives are commercially published in other places. So we keep different metadata because a lot of it exists elsewhere. We keep sort of mainly publication information. So we have the date that this was published. You'll notice there's two dates here. 1936 is the date this was originally produced, and then there was a reprint in 1988. That's why there's two dates. This belongs to our pamphlet collection. We have format here, which is a pamphlet, obviously, so it's part of the pamphlet collection. The creator is also the author or editor. The language that this is in, which is English, subject access, which is kissing, and then the location, and that tells you which box, but which physical box in the archives this pamphlet resides. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the sexuality archives and the university archives in a bit, but first we thought we'd take a little tour of some interesting digital archives that exist out there on the web. So we would be remiss if we did not mention the National Archives, which comes from the National Archives and Records Administration, which is an arm of the federal government, which serves as the nation's record keeper. So all documents and materials created by the government are kept in the National Archives. In addition, they also have pictures. There's there's video. There are physical objects and things like that. So the National Archives are very interesting if you're interested in material related to the federal government, or United States history. So what we have here, we have you can find the National Archives at archives.gov, very easy to remember. And we have a picture here from the Tuskegee syphilis study, which is undated, but it looks like somebody is being given a shot, probably one containing syphilis. Okay. For something a little lighter than the National Archives, we have a historical recipe file from the Milwaukee Public Library. So the Milwaukee Public Library created an archive of recipes that were published in Milwaukee newspapers, so the Milwaukee Journal and the Milwaukee Sentinel. And these recipes are from 1960 to 1980. And there's some very interesting recipes in there. A lot of Jello molds, a lot of casseroles, as you can imagine. But I thought this one was very interesting. This is a $100 cake. I don't exactly know what makes it $100. I don't think it's that the ingredients cost $100. Maybe it tastes like $100, like that millionaire shortbread. But I wanted to point out this very interesting ingredient. It calls for, in addition to flour and sugar and things like that, a cup of mayonnaise. So I'm guessing that is a very moist cake. Okay, our next archive of note is the archive at the Kinsey Institute. The Kinsey Institute is based in the University of Indiana and preserves, this is another sexuality archive, so this preserves materials related to sexuality and related to the work of Dr. Alfred Kinsey. What we have here is called a Tijuana Bible, or an 8-pager. And a Tijuana Bible was an 8-page, thus an 8-pager, 8-page comic, pornographic comic that featured prominent cartoon characters of the day. So Olive Oyl, Popeye, Blondie. My guess is that there's probably some Mickey and Minnie Mouse in there somewhere. I think that'd probably be much harder to find because Disney's pretty good at tracking that stuff down. This one here is Frank O'Hare Presents Tilly. Okay,
so back
to you.
Back to the Widener University Archives. So here we have our mission, and I've included page views. This shows the amount of page views we've had on all of our collections in 24-25 academic year. As I said, we're managing over 20,000 digital objects. Um, the general collection contains these kinds of things: alumni directories, course catalogs, oral and published histories, student newspapers, online newsletters, scrapbooks, and yearbooks. And this is a page from one of our scrapbooks that I wanted to show you. I love this. Cadets who were graduating from Pennsylvania Military College had to create a scrapbook as a graduation requirement. And so this particular cadet got very serious about it and took elements from his room and put them in the scrapbook, including his mattress and a bed bug. So this is one of our greatest pictures, and it really shows how wonderful the digitization process can make it, because you can feels like you can reach out and touch these things. Um, these are like the standard kinds of things that we have. Some of the standard things that we have in the archives, and these are just they're organized by pages or whatever. They're organized, just each page is digitized for these collections. Next slide, please. And but I think the most fun collections that we have are our curated collections, where we actually take pieces that tell a story and put them together in an interesting way. So in this collection, which is Female Trailblazers, we went through all of our archives to find times when women were interacting with this previously all-male military school. And we put these in order, in chronological order, in sections, so that they could be viewed as a history of women getting more and more involved, and then school eventually becoming coeducational. So when we started in 1967, this is a picture of the first female who had registered to be in the engineering program, and this is a woman who did become an engineer. And there were articles about her because she was the first woman. And the articles are very gendered. They explain her height and her weight and whether she's going to date or not. The 1968 photograph is my favorite photograph. It was done for an ad in Time magazine. They didn't end up using this picture, but they used another picture. But they did use the tagline, which was, "We wanted a more rounded student body." So think about the implications of that. Anyway, I love this picture, so it's so campy. And then in 1976, this is one of the first women to graduate through the ROTC program. And she won all the awards at graduation, and I just love that picture. Leading up to 2015 with Julie Woolman as the first female president. And then we have a graph of the population by gender from 1967 to 2014. And lots of other really fun things that you can look at in this collection. Next slide, please. Another curated collection that we created with the similar intent was the LGBTQIA+ at Widener collection. And this is when we went into our archives to see how these issues and this population was dealt with over the years. And it's a really great history, like the Female Trailblazers, of acceptance and leading to celebration and then scholarship. And so in 1982, it starts with this article in the newspaper about a gay-straight alliance, and there was some controversy around that. But then we went to 1996, where a student is getting help with a program to raise money for AIDS awareness. And then we have pictures of two student groups. And then we have an example of how they're getting financial support. Widener LGBTQ community is getting financial support. An open mic night celebrating people at the library, and then one of our colleagues, one of our professors, leading a a gay pride parade. So it's a really great, another really great collection of leading tour celebration, scholarship. Next slide, please. One of our other collections that is very well used, very often looked at, it had over 3,000 page views this past year, is the George Raymond papers. George Raymond was head of the Chester branch of the NAACP for nearly 25 years. During the most tumultuous 25 years when there was a lot of civil rights demonstrations in Chester. So you see this broadsheet that is explaining what the NAACP has integrated in recent years, days in this or months in the 60s, and then these pictures of a pilgrimage to Washington and the school segregation protests that took place in Chester. The man in the foreground is a Widener University student at the time. And this is a great collection to look at the history of civil rights in the Chester area. Next slide, please. And then one of our crowning achievements is a newer collection or a newer series of collections on student and faculty scholarship. As you can see, these have been highly viewed in the last year, and we have a selection of dissertations and theses, 457 as of April. And in these categories of dissertations, we also have engineering master's theses and nursing practice capstone projects, all of which are viewed constantly. And this is a way of expanding access to these objects, because anybody who has access to the internet can use these scholarly works and see what our students have been engaged in. And then student scholarship, we have the opportunity to present posters and digital presentations, and the posters look wonderful and they can be expanded and zoomed in. And these are the categories that we have used to celebrate that students create these wonderful projects based on their intense research, and then we're able to present them. And again, everyone can access them by just having the link. And it's a really great way to see how students have been engaged in research at this institution.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Sexuality Archives, what we do, what we have, who uses it, why it's important to do this work. So the Sexuality Archives is the mission of the Sexuality Archives is to collect, preserve, and most importantly, make available to researchers materials such as pamphlets, books, newsletters, journals, audiovisual materials related to the history of sexuality, sexology, sexuality education, and Widener's Human Sexuality program. So why do we want to collect material related to sexuality, sexuality education, things like that? Basically because sexuality and sexually explicit materials are often purposefully excluded from library and archival collections, including the Library of Congress. So these materials may not exist in other places, or they may be very hard to find. They may be suppressed. They may be hidden. With our current situation in the country, they may be outright banned. So we collect these materials so that people have access to them because they are hard to get access to. So what is it that we collect? Well, we have a print collection. So that's books, periodicals, so magazines, newsletters, things like that. And then we have a pamphlet collection. So this is just a small sampling of the kind of things we have in the archives. So this is a copy of Women and Their Bodies. This is the first edition of what would become Oh, and now I'm blanking out on the name of the book. Um, well, it doesn't matter. Um, but this is the first edition of that, which is interesting to see how it morphed into what it is today. This is a very interesting little book called Fighting Fighting in the Traffic of Young Girls. It is an anti, and I'm putting this in quotation marks, white slavery book. Um, this is what happens when your girls leave the farm and go to the big city. They're going to be enslaved. Um, very, very interesting to take a look at. We have, as I said, newsletters, and then we have pamphlets. This actually, this pamphlet was put together by Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood. This is laws on birth control in the United States. So it takes each state at the time and lists whether birth control was legal, what forms of birth control were legal, or whether nothing was legal. So we also have, in addition to our print collection, we have audiovisual materials. So DVDs, VHS, 35 millimeter film, 16 millimeter film, 8 millimeter film. We also have a handful of record albums. So one here pictured the songs of erotica is actually nothing but banjo music. So for all of you out there who find banjo music erotic, I have something for you to listen to. We also collect personal papers of sexologists and sexuality educators. So a lot of the people who are pioneers in this field and the original faculty that started with the Human Sexuality Program when it was at the University of Pennsylvania and came from the University of Pennsylvania to Widener with the program are aging out of their work. They're retiring, and they have amassed over the course of their lifetime correspondence and papers and research and legislation and minutes and syllabi and things like that. And they donate that to the archives, and we collect and digitize that as well. Now, one of our smaller collections, but certainly one that's probably interesting to most people, is our collection of ephemera. So ephemera is the fancy archive word for everything else. So these are the physical objects. So they run the gamut between from a stuffed elephant that gives birth, her name is Bertha, to a pride flag that was found on campus, to this Ramsey's condom tin from the 1940s, to this 1910 White Cross vibrator, and everything in between. So, who uses the archives? Who comes and uses this stuff? Well, we have university faculty, both from inside of Widener and external to Widener. We have graduate and doctoral students that come from all over the world to use the sexuality archives. 2 years ago, I think I had a doctoral student from the Netherlands who wanted to use Dr. Staten's personal papers in her work. And in the last 2 years, with the restructuring of our first year experience and the general education curriculum, I've had a lot of ASC 101 classes, a lot of English 101 classes, gender and women's studies classes, sexuality classes. I have had local authors come. They want to do some research about what something was like in the 20s or 30s or 40s so that they can accurately write it into their novels. And of course, people who are donating things want to come and see where the things that they're donating are going to live. Generally, although all of the donors are sort of interested in that, usually it's the deceased, the spouse of a deceased person. They want to come and know that their spouse's papers and things like that are going to be given a good home and be cared for correctly. So the Sexuality Archives does not necessarily have, at the moment, the kind of dynamic collections that Jill talked about for the University Archives. But Jill did recently remind me that the University Archives and the Sexuality Archives did do a collaborative collection. Um, Jill, can you remind me what the title of that was?
Yes, that was a wonderful collection. It was called Intersections,
Yes.
and it was similar to our other dynamic curated collections, where we each went into our archives and found neat images and items from the same year or period of time and represented them together. One of my favorite examples was from the 1920 when the daughter of the president of Pennsylvania Military College at the time was tasked with selecting women that would go to dances or the dance season with each cadet. So there was X number of cadets and they had to find X number of high school and college women. And the question was, how are they going to pair these groups up with each other? And having a conversation and getting to know each other was not an option, was not the option or that they considered as good way to pair people up. But looking at their eyes or their ankles, the men looking at the women's eyes or ankles was seen as a much better suggestion. And this is from a newspaper article that was in the local newspaper, and we paired this with uh, information about how birth control wasn't even allowed to be advertised in print ads at the time. So that was just a very interesting co comment comparison.
We'll have to look for other ways that we could collaborate in dynamic collections going forward.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to the end of our presentation. If anybody has any questions, Jill and I will be happy to field those. And if not, we can just say thank you very much. Both archives have online presence, obviously, because they're digital archives. We hope that you check them out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.